How you doing? Oh, that's not good enough. We are here in defense of Congressman Ilhan Omar. How are you doing? Are you ready to be in defense? I can't hear you. Are you ready to stand in defense? I'm going to ask us to gather together. Where are you going to sit? Okay. So we're here together for a number of different reasons. There are thousands of people around the country, around the world that can't be here with us. So we do have people here documenting this experience. We're going to try to create a space and opportunity where you could be as close to the speakers as possible. Create a little bit of space for those in the press with the cameras to be able to capture, but we also want to make sure that we can find as much room as possible for us to be close. Can we do that? Can we do that? Are you ready to see the powerful speakers here today? All right. So first, let me just say I am honored to be here, to look around and see the beautiful, powerful people that came from states, different cities, to say what is happening to Congressman Omar is an injustice. And black women around the world, whether they're here or not, are going to stand united in defense for her life, but also for her progressive voice and the agenda she can move in Congress. We are here because we are not afraid of the hateful messages coming from the White House. We are here because we know that power is with the people. We are here because we know victory is not just possible, victory is ours, and victory is coming. So we are thankful that you decide to join us, because if you don't know, this is a historic occasion. Can you feel it? I don't know if you feel it. Can you feel it? We are an intergenerational group of black women. We are a group of women across movement, across communities that have decided to converge into D.C., and I gotta tell y'all, they're still coming. So we are going to hear from our speakers very soon, and we're also going to ask that during this entire experience, we want to embody love as black women. We want to embody love. We want to embody power. And we want to tell the world just how strong enough we are when we band together. Can we do that? It is my pleasure, family, to invite our first group of speakers. Barbara Ransby and our comrade Miski with the Movement for Black Lives, who is going to ground us in why we chose to be here today. Hey y'all. I said hey y'all. How you doing? I feel so grateful to be here with y'all today. What was that? You excited? Okay. My name is Miski, and I have the pleasure of just grounding us in a little of how we came to be here. Y'all think we ended up here by accident? No? Is it an accident that black women said it's time to stand up for black women? No? No, it's not. This is not the first time Ilhan or black women have faced white supremacist violence, right? This is not the first time that our lives have been under threat. The first time I heard Ilhan's name and tried to find out more about her and heard her story is because in Minneapolis at a precinct caucus, while she was trying to change the process of how black folks get elected in Minnesota, she was attacked, right? And she survived through that because her people came together for her, just like we're doing right now, right? I am grateful that in Minneapolis and in DC and across this country and across this world, folks are coming together for the safety and the lives of black women. I want to ground us in that legacy. Leading up to this day, I've been looking really fondly at a particular picture, and you'll see it if you follow the Movement for Black Lives on Twitter and Instagram. It's shared there. And it's this picture of Somali women in 1972 protesting the imprisonment of Angela Davis.
right? In 1972, Somali women said, no, we know this is wrong and we are going to gather here so you see our strength and see that we stand here for Angela Davis. Because black women stand for black women, right? And so that is the legacy in which we continue today. So thank you for being a part of that legacy. Thank you for being here today, and please enjoy this time with us. Ashe.
How's everybody doing? Good. It's a beautiful day. The sun is shining on us. That means something, right? I am really honored to be here, and we have very deliberately, very consciously invited some very special people to be here with us. So we didn't invite thousands of black women. We invited 100 black women, and it's still coming. We invited 100 black women who represent communities, sectors, organizations, campaigns, and we want you to know that what we have here today, who we've convened here today, represent hundreds and thousands more. And we are here from 21 organizations in 18 cities. We represent faith communities, immigrant communities, LGBT communities. We are professors and labor leaders and artists and organizers. And we are here to represent not only the communities we come from, but also the places where our sisters are that cannot be here with us today. We are here to represent and be in solidarity with our incarcerated sisters, with our Muslim sisters banned from visiting this country, visiting their friends and families here. We are here in solidarity with our immigrant sisters and their families languishing in detention centers. And we're here for two reasons very specifically. We're here to defend the right of black people to speak about what happens in this country, to act based on what happens in this country, to affirm our lives and black women's lives and our sisters' lives. And what has been tantamount to putting a hit out on Ilhan Omar, we are here to say we stand with her. We will not have it. We want the GOP and 45 to back off. And we want the Democrats to step up. We want to hear from the Democratic leaders. We want to hear the Congressional Black Caucus in defense of Ilhan Omar and all of our progressive sisters of color in Congress. We always talk about keeping politicians accountable, and we really do. But when we get somebody in there that is actually speaking to the issues that we care about, right, they're going to get attacked, and we have to be there to defend them, and that's what we're here to say today. Ilhan Omar is not just here to talk about what we think of as narrow women's issues. She's not just here to talk about immigrant issues. She's not just here to talk about the Muslim ban. She has talked about a whole range of progressive issues, and we stand with her on that. It's in the spirit of black internationalism that we identify with, right, of women, black women speaking out about what's happening in the world. A lot of people around here don't think that that's appropriate. And we're saying we expect her to speak out. We defend her. We see what's happening in Venezuela. Principled voices, collusion, and shut up. The other reason we remember what happened in Brazil when there was a vitriolic campaign around a radical, progressive black woman. And we hear preemptively to say we have our sisters back. We hear allow her to be vilified like this, and they're going to have to go through all of us in order to hurt her, right? We're also here to speak up on behalf of Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We hope that they all go to Palestine this summer and see the other side of the wall in Palestine. We defend the right of Ilhan and others to speak out about the situation of our sisters and brothers in Palestine. We understand as a multi-faith community, and some people who have faith in just people, right, that is a critical issue of our time, and we will not be silenced on it. We will not be intimidated to think that every time you criticize the state of Israel's policies of inhumanity against the Palestinians, that it is anti-Semitic. We know better than that. And our progressive Jewish brothers and sisters know better than that, and they're speaking out on it, and we stand with them as well. So thank you for being here today. We want to have other actions going forward. The Movement for Black Lives has been the impetus for this. Movement for Black Lives took a position on Palestine in August 2016 in the Vision for Black Lives. The young people in that movement have gone to Palestine in various delegations, not as some sort of charity gesture, but seeing the parallels between what's happening in occupied Palestine and what has happened in this country to black people in the Jim Crow South, where our sister Beverly Guy-Sheftall grew up and talked about on our delegation to Palestine. We see similarities with apartheid South Africa, and this is related to us. This is an extension of our quest for freedom, our struggle for freedom. So we're not going to have Ilhan be vilified and her words distorted around that question, and we're not going to be silenced either. So we're here to speak on behalf and defense of black women because we see so many of our sisters, and one of my personal heroes, many of my personal heroines are up here today, but also Senator Nina Turner, who has also been criticized for daring to speak out. We know our sister Angela Davis has been targeted for speaking out on the question of Palestine. So this is beyond Ilhan Omar. She is at the center of it right now. We're standing with her, but we're standing with all of our sisters, and we're standing strong. And thank you for being here today.
Yes, Barbara. Thank you. One more time for Barbara Ransby, y'all. The God. So, all right, I'm going to welcome up our next speakers. We've got Kiki and Jordan from the local M4BL contingent here.
Hello, everyone. So, we're from the Movement for Black Lives DC Coalition. Gang, gang. And we want to welcome you here, but of course we're going to have to welcome you in our style, right? So y'all, we're going to do call and response again, all right? So call and response. Call and response. Call and response. Just like that, okay? All right. Let my people go. Let my people go. Set my people free. Set like you were me. I love you like you were me. I love you like you were me. I love you like you were me. Thank you. Clap it up for yourselves.
In 1951, several black women freedom fighters penned a call to Negro women, urging black women across the country to come to Washington, D.C. to protest poverty, discrimination, and war. They called for freedom for political prisoners and for an end to violent retaliation against people who dare to speak out against the government and its violence.
Over 100 black women responded and came to D.C. in solidarity. That was 1951. It's now nearly 70 years later in 2019, and we're gathered here to turn up and do the same thing. We're all a part of a long legacy of black folk rising up in bravery, love, and righteous anger, and commitment to freedom for all oppressed people around the world.
Thank you to everyone within the Movement for Black Lives for coming together and organizing this day. Organizations like Black Lives Matter, BYP 100, Body, and so much more. And thank you to all of today's speakers. We have immense gratitude to speak with us today to share her wisdom. And a deep, deep thank you to Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, whose leadership and commitment shows us that together we can rise up against discrimination, abuse, and threats that come our way and achieve liberation for us all.
Black, trans, and cis women, non-gender confirming folks, LGBTQIA people, Muslim people, Jewish people, immigrants, poor people, incarcerated people, indigenous people, and more are often attacked and dehumanized in this country. We know struggle, and we know what it feels like to be retaliated against and stifled when advocating for ourselves and for those around us. We know what it feels like to be beaten, bruised, and disappeared for doing nothing but telling the truth.
And let's say something, y'all. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar has been telling the damn truth. Palestinian people are suffering. People are being surveilled, brutalized, and killed by the state of Israel. Police in Israel have even done trainings with cops in DC where they trade tactics with one another that are used to oppress people in their respective areas. There are a lot of connections between Palestinian people and black people in DC. In the district, we see a lot of state violence against black women for things they do for survival.
There are many black, trans, and cis women and non-binary people in D.C. who have been discriminated against when trying to access jobs and housing due to their identities. One of our friends, a local D.C. organizer named Nona Connor, who unfortunately couldn't join us today, but sends her regards, is a former sex worker who has experienced homelessness since she was a teenager. She grew up in D.C. in an abusive home and ran away when she was 15 to try and find a place that would accept her for who she is. She's been thrown in jail for doing sex work and things she had to do to survive to keep from going hungry.
People like Nona know police violence firsthand. Being misgendered, attacked, threatened, sexually assaulted by cops. It's common for many trans women of color, for our sisters and our friends. So we spend our days advocating for safety for trans people, for people in the sex trades, and for abuse and harassment survivors. We do this because it is central to our survival. It is our duty.
It is our duty to look out for one another, to protect and to support one another. Representative Ilhan Omar has made it her duty to be in solidarity with Palestinian struggles. We must make it our duty to support her in the face of racist, Islamophobic violence and retaliation. Black women like Representative Ilhan Omar reminds us how important it is to increase our solidarity with oppressed people, both near and far, in our hoods and across the globe.
The local movement for Black Lives has been busy at work.
Yes.
Organizers have been pushing for investment in the Neighborhood Engagement Achieves Results Act, or the NEAR Act, which would invest in public health strategies to reduce violence and also reduce incarceration.
We've been on a push to decriminalize blackness. Can you say decriminalize blackness?
Decriminalize blackness.
We've been fighting for safety for black and brown people in sex trades through the campaign Decrim Now. We've centered healing and community in our work through healing brunches. Organizers are raising money right now to bail black mamas and caregivers out of jail for Mother's Day. Right? Can you say free black mamas?
Free black mamas.
Free black mamas.
Free black mamas.
Right, we want to reunite them with their families through the Black Mamas Bailout DMV.
For black immigrants. When we fight to support and uplift black women, femmes, and LGBTQIA+ people through the She Safe, We Safe campaign. And we join our allies who are running campaigns like Occupation Free DC, which aims to bring an end to DC Israel police trainings.
So if it's already not clear, Representative Ilhan Omar, we are with you. You tell these people the truth. We are in solidarity with you and in admiration of your bravery and your commitment to doing your job by advocating for what is right and what is just. It is an honor to witness your light.
And black women, femmes, trans, queer, gay, lesbian, bisexual people, everyone out there who are out here struggling, trying to survive, doing the best they can, advocating for themselves and their families. We're with y'all too. We deserve so much more than what this mainstream society gives us. And we're going to rise up, turn up, shine, realize, free and liberated. Thank you all for your time. And welcome to DC!
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Awesome. I'm going to have you come up. Okay.
Great rising, black people. Great rising, black people. I am Savannah Brown. I'm here of Black Women's Blueprint, the Majority, and the March for Black Women. Today, I am reminded of my ancestors' rage. I am reminded of their labor and their words and their wisdom and their fight. I am lifted by their spirits, by their warrior marks, and continued struggle that we live out in that legacy today. We are here because we cannot rest. We are here because we cannot be silent. In the words of the late great feminist poet, Mother Audre Lorde, I am your sister. All of our children are prey. And this is why we cannot be silent. Because our silence will come to testify against us out of the mouths of our children. This is why we cannot be silent. This moment reminds us of the ways that Black women are targeted just for their very survival. We remember the vilification of the Black Lives Matter movement. We remember the vilification of the Black Youth Project. We remember the hacking and hijacking of the founding of Black Lives Matter from three Black queer women. We remember the criminalization of local organizers lost voices on the grounds of Ferguson, Missouri. We remember the murder of an organizer, of thousands of hundreds of organizers from Ferguson. We remember the exile of Trinidad-born feminist journalist and Black liberation activist Claudia Jones. We remember the social death imposed on Black women. We remember the assassination of character and framing of Angela Davis. We remember the individual and societal perpetuation of degrade and shame manufactured against Anita Hill, who spoke against sexual harassment. We remember the framing and hospital torture of imprisonment and policing encircling Assata Shakur. We remember the forced exile of Assata Shakur, the encircling infiltration and bombing of MOVE, a Black liberation organization in Philly. We remember the murder of Sandra Bland, of Aiyana Jones. We remember the history taught us to do this work is to live under all forms of threat, the deadly threat of white supremacy, the insidious threats that come from within. And we are attempting to survive today, even now, xenophobia, white supremacy, white supremacist tactics, Islamophobia, misogyny, patriarchy, and sexism. Our very lives and our humanity are perpetually under attack and under threat in this nation. It is this very land that we are trying to survive. It is the very water in Flint, Michigan that we are trying to survive. And we are scrutinized and crucified for the way that we speak against how we move in this world is even under attack. This moment is not an isolated incident or a personalized issue. It is a larger mass attack on the humanity and dignity of Black women and femmes, how we show up in our fullness and our personhood, how we fight back, how we speak back. Since her 2018 election, Congresswoman Omar has been targeted by this administration and others who fear her, and we believe they should fear her. Not because of the absurd dog whistle language being used to denigrate her, but rather they should be more than little cautious of Black women who fight for people's agendas, who remain unafraid of anti-Blackness, Islamophobia, white male patriarchy. They should be afraid because, like our sister Ilhan, we aren't backing down. We will not waver in our support of her and other Black women who are under siege. We will never waver in our support. We will say loud and clear, hands off Ilhan. Hands off Ilhan. Activists, academics, and brave members of our community are standing behind our sisters, and we aren't going anywhere. Say, we aren't going anywhere. We aren't going anywhere. We are encouraged by her tenacity and the love and support she continues to receive from her district. We lend her continued strength that she will not be persuaded to back down from the fight she has willingly entered. If we should start to feel discouraged or downcast, remember the rage of our ancestors. Remember their warrior marks. Remember their fight. Remember us. Remember us. Say, remember us. Remember us. Remember us. Thank you so much. Before we invite up our next speaker, Reverend Tracy Blackman, faith leader, civil rights leader, let's do one more chant. Savannah started us off. When I say hands off, you say Ilhan. Hands up. Hands up. Hands up. Okay, but I want it louder than that. Can we do that? I want her to feel it. Can we do that? Hands up.
you today from St. Louis, Missouri, better known as Ferguson. But I don't want you to think that it's just Ferguson. It's all of St. Louis. It's all of us everywhere. Friends, I've come to our nation's capital today to stand with you against the racist, xenophobic, Islamophobic, sexist vitriol that has plagued Congressman Ilhan Omar since she became the people's choice for representation in Congress. I've come to our nation's capital to stand with you because the silence of our collective political leadership in the face of the reckless and irresponsible bullying by the self-avowed white nationalists who is tasked to lead our country and serve all of the people is deafening. I've come to our nation's capital to stand with you because our nation's shameful history systemically and systematically dismissing, devaluing, and denigrating the presence and the power of black women while elevating white supremacist ideations on our backs has got on my nerves. I've come to our nation's capital to stand with you because in spite of black women being the most consistent voting bloc in the nation, the needs and concerns of black women are ridiculed and ignored on both sides of the aisle. I've come to our nation's capital to stand with you because in spite of black women being the largest and the most consistent users of social media, Twitter chose to preserve a lying tweet over the safety of this black woman's life. I've come to our nation's capital to stand with you because black women control $1.3 trillion in the American economy, and we will no longer be offered up as sacrificial lambs on the altar of white supremacy. I have come because we all know that the targeting of Congressman Ilhan Omar has more to do with the courageous adornment of her head, the color of her skin, and the profession of her faith than it has to do with the truth she's daring to speak. I come because of the relentless assault on black women on our southern borders who seek asylum in this country. I have come because we are not the other in a nation built on our backs, suckled at our breast, and enriched by the blood and sweat of our ancestors whose labor was stolen to fill the coffers of the few. I don't come because it's political. I come because it's amoral. I don't come because it's popular. I come because it's personal. I've come to stand with you, black women, because we love us more than they hate us. And we will not let them kill us. We will not let them silence us. We will not let them divide us. We know well the poisonous fruit of this white supremacy tree. Our bodies have been lynched there. Our children have been whipped there. Our freedom has been bound there. And we will not ingest this toxic diet of hatred in our midst. We know well that both anti-Semitism and Islamophobia sprout from the same tree. Both sexism and homophobia sprout from the same tree. Both racism and classism sprout from the same tree. Both religious intolerance and white supremacist idolatry sprout from the same tree. And we clearly see who's watering its roots. And yet, we come.
I come because when black women decide to do something, we know can cut that sucker down.
Y'all feel that? Do y'all feel that? When black women decide to do something, that means power. All right. So as we introduce our next speaker, I want to take a moment of silence. Because as we just heard, the same hate that is targeting our Muslim family, our black people, people around the world, the same hate struck in San Diego. Where so many of our Jewish brothers and sisters were targeted. So we have to show the world that we stand together before we invite Rachel Faulkner from the Jewish Women of Color organization. Can we do that? But can we first take a moment of silence? Thank you. Rachel?
Thank you. My name is Rachel Faulkner. I am black and I am Jewish. And with every breath I breathe and every step I take, white supremacy that is afraid of me as a black and Jewish woman, that is afraid of her as a black and Muslim woman. And if we did not know, it is that same white supremacy that entered a synagogue on Saturday, the last day of Passover. Whew, this is still fresh. Thank you. And shot a rabbi while he gave his Shabbat sermon, killing one of his worshipers. And in this case, exact white supremacist that set fire to a mosque just a month prior. And if we did not know, it is that same white supremacy that killed 50 Muslims in New Zealand last month as they prayed in their mosques. It is that same white supremacy that killed that caused 3 historically black churches to burn to the ground in Louisiana. But the thing is, we did know. We know that it is the same white supremacy that targets Jews, that targets Muslims, that targets black people, that targets queer people, that targets anyone and everyone that is a threat to white power and white privilege in our world. And that is why white supremacy is afraid of me and is afraid of Ilhan. And that is why white supremacy thrives when wedges are formed between us and between Jews and between Muslims and between all marginalized faith backgrounds. It is why white supremacy thrives when anti-Semitism accusations are used to dismantle resistance, are used to disempower our leaders, and are used to maintain the status quo. But we are here today, and I hope white supremacy is shaking in its boots. Because we are strong in coalition, we are unbreakable in coalition, and we will no longer let white supremacy dismantle our solidarity. We will stand together, and we will win. And as we often say in the Jewish community, Im Yirtzeh Hashem, may it be God's will.
We know that the attacks that we see happening to Congressman Ilhan Omar is happening to Muslim black women across the country. And so it is a great honor to have somebody that is a state representative out of Philadelphia to come and speak with us about why it is important to stand in solidarity, but why this solidarity is not just at the national level, but has to be from city to city, from region to region, from state to state. Please join me in welcoming Honorable Motiva.
Good afternoon, everyone. I stand with Ilhan. I stand with Ilhan. My name is Movita Johnson Harrell. I am the first hijabi elected to the Pennsylvania State Legislature. In being elected to the Pennsylvania State Legislature, I actually experienced some of the same hate and bigotry and Islamophobia that Ilhan has experienced here in the Capitol on my first day of inauguration. Before I was actually sworn in to the State House, a Republican state representative did an invocation in the House that was latent with bigotry, Islamophobia, and racism, and we will not tolerate it. It is unacceptable. America was built on religious freedoms and the ideas of liberty and justice. We cannot allow white supremacy, masked as white nationalism, to continue to control the narrative. We cannot allow it to continue to create division and hate in this country. While we cannot allow the divisive rhetoric to continue to control the narrative that happens in our courtrooms, in our boardrooms, in our state legislature. It is unacceptable. In the words of 12-year-old Miriam from Connecticut, a hijabi author at 12 years old, I repeat her saying, inclusion revolution. It is our responsibility as leaders and legislators to promote diversity and inclusion and to stand in the gap for our most vulnerable citizens. When we create spaces that promote inclusion and representation, we make America great. We make America great. All Americans, white Americans, black Americans, Latino Americans, Asian Americans, Muslim Americans, Christian Americans, Jew Americans, we all have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So with that being said, take out your phones, hashtag inclusion revolution, because we stand in the gap. We stand together. We stand with Ilhan. We stand for true democracy that will make America great.
Very brief introduction, and we have some special guests that are going to come and join us in just a little bit. But I want to introduce State Senator the Honorable Nina Turner. And if you don't know who she is, whenever you hear on CNN or MSNBC or mainstream media distributing some distortions about our people and our struggle and the issues, if Nina Turner is anywhere near, she puts it to rest. She is a freedom fighter in the best tradition, fighting inside, outside, and all around the centers of power that we recognize here, but grounded with working class black people, grounded in grassroots movements. Every time I see her on my telly, I'm applauding and knowing that she's speaking my voice and speaking truth to power. So welcome, Nina Turner.
Wow. Thank you, Professor. And thank you for all the visionaries who had the courage to bring us all together. To all of my sisters who have gone before me, not just on this stage, but I am feeling the spirit of our foremothers who have gone generations before. But when people try to cancel out history and to have Dr. Angela Davis on this stage who personifies, who put her body on the line, who spoke truth, nothing but the truth, show enough truth, as my grandmother used to say. And what an honor it is to be in her presence yet again. You know, my grandmother used to say that you can put truth in the river 5 days after lie, but truth gonna catch up. And the truth of the matter has caught up with our country. And its latest manifestation of 21st century bigotry, 21st century hatred, 21st century cowardice is in the White House. But sisters and brothers, I would be remiss, as I told the professor, that it is easy to lay all of this haterism at the feet of one person. But I asked you to go back down memory lane with me, that in this country, wholesale anti-blackness is accepted, whether it's by the man in the White House or people who occupy levels of power in this country. It is bigger than him. And sisters and brothers, we have been here before. So none of this is new to us. So standing up for our sister, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who is the representation of the type of bigotry that we have allowed to go on far too long in this country. If I may and if I might. Brother Malcolm X once said, when he described the difference between the North and the South, he said it was the difference between the fox and the wolf. I am here today to say that the difference between what we see emanating from the White House and the difference between what we see and hear and know to be coming from other folks with fancy titles on the other side of the aisle is the difference between the fox and the wolf. And all I'm saying, sisters, is that if we're not going to tolerate bigotry and hatred coming from the White House, then we need not tolerate bigotry and sexism and racism and homophobia coming from the other side of the aisle. Folks always like to whisper sweet nothings in the ears of black women when it comes time for us to vote, but they support and respect our black bodies, our black babies, our black communities beyond the power of the vote. So I stand with Sister Ilhan Omar. We don't need leaders with fancy titles who may not have the courage to call bigotry. We ourselves will call out that type of bigotry. We stand on the backs of black foremothers who had the audacity to speak truth to power. When Sister Sojourner Truth said, "Ain't I a woman?" in the 1850s. When Sister Ida B. Wells, in terms of talking about what it is like to see black bodies swinging from trees, she said, "I must prove that there's more sinning going on by other folks than sinning by black folks." When Sister Harriet Tubman encouraged us, and if we hear the dogs, keep going. If there are torches in the woods, keep going. If they're shouting after us, keep going. If we want a taste of freedom, keep going. And then our sister, Dr. Maya Angelou, said these precious words: "You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still like air I rise." To my black sisters, to my brown sisters, to my swirl in between sisters, to indigenous sisters, I say that we will rise over hatred. We will rise over bigotry. We will rise over anti-Semitism. We will rise over Islamophobia. And we will rise over all types of anti-blackness and colorism. Hello, somebody. We will rise and create for ourselves and future generations in this country a force that is greater than nature, a force of conscious-minded people all walking of life, on the standing up for justice justice, equality, and all that's good. We rise.
We are joined by the very powerful, the very powerful, the very courageous, the very outstanding leader, Congressman Ilhan Omar. And it is our duty and our responsibility today to not just show her how much we are willing to stand in defense of her, but also how much we love her. Can y'all do that with me? Can you do it with me, family?
All right, y'all. Here we go. We love you. 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 Louder. Love you. We 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 love you. Thank you. We love you, Representative Omar. Thank you. Awesome. Who's on the second?
How y'all doing? How we doing? Do we love her? Do we love her? Will we defend her? Always. 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 But let me tell you, we are also joined by other freedom fighters in Congress as well. We are joined by powerful women in Congress who are there doing what? They are moving the agenda. They are speaking truth to power. They are representing our values and that don't know how to respect our values. And so I want you to do me a favor. We need to show some love to Congressman Ayanna Pressley, who will join us. Or we're gonna show Congressman Pressley some love. Please join me in introducing and welcoming Congressman Ayanna Pressley.
All right, good afternoon. So, for those of you that don't know, I had an accident and I tore my MCL. So my limbs have been compromised, but my voice is strong as ever. And I had to come here to lend my voice in solidarity. I happen to be a congresswoman, but before all the commas and titles, I'm a black woman. And Ilhan's my sister. And so I just wanted to be here in solidarity. I want to thank, everyone that made this moment possible, those who have been lifting up and praying and carrying our sister Ilhan. And, I just want to quote Angela Davis, who said, "I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I can no longer accept." And so, this is so real. Okay, bring it on back, Anna. But I am changing the things I can no longer accept. And from R. Kelly to Donald Trump, what we can no longer accept is the silencing of black women. This is the reckoning. This is us assuming our rightful place as the table shakers, as the truth tellers, as the justice seekers, as the preservers of democracy. We are demanding that you trust black women, that you see black women, that you believe black women, and honor us for the role that we have played as healers and preservers of this democracy and this nation. You have been feeding quite literally off of us. This is nothing charitable. This is what we are owed. This is what we are owed. This is what we deserve. Hands off Ilhan. And we can talk about the occupant. Now listen, I've been in government a long time, and people think I'm disrespecting the institution when I refer to that man as the occupant. I'm not disrespecting him. he dishonors this office, and that's why he doesn't deserve that title. He's the occupant. He's just occupying space. He dishonors the office, and we dishonor him for that. I can't even believe that we're in a debate about whether or not to impeach when the occupant, the man in the highest office in the land, emboldens white supremacy and endangers the lives of a member of Congress. Now, she's our sister, so we just call her by one name, Ilhan. But she is a representative, a member of Congress. This is unconscionable. Hands off, Ilhan. And we can talk about the occupant in the corner office, and we can because I can't sit idly by while we walk in contradiction and hypocrisy and go into our districts and affirm and lift up our commitments to the preservation of families and fighting for immigrants and refugees in our districts. But I can't protect my sister in her own caucus. That's not okay. And that's why we're here. And they're surprised that we're here. And that we'll continue to be here because we are not going quietly into the night. There are attempts to silence us in their silence by being complicit. There are attempts to silence us through legislation. There are attempts to silence us through their movements. A great activist friend of mine once said, it's not that the marginalized are voiceless, it's that they are unheard. And so to that I say, can you hear us now? Hands off, Ilhan. We love you, Ilhan. I love you, my sister, and thank you all for being here.
Hands off. Ilhan. Hands off. Ilhan. Hands off. Ilhan. Do y'all see this power? Yeah. Do you? Yeah. It is with great pleasure to introduce the next Congresswoman, this powerful leader, this history maker, this person that is also moving a powerful agenda for us, for our people, for our children. We are here to stand with Congressman Rashida Tlaib. We are here to stand in solidarity with Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. Thank you, sister. I think you say my last name so beautifully. Tlaib, it's like emphasis. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum. Ilhan, I love you, Habibti. You know how much I love you. She gave me a bracelet that said Mama Bear. Because every time, I always worry about my sisters constantly. But I am so protective. You know, I'm there. But one of the things that's incredibly beautiful and inspiring about Sister Ilhan Omar is that when I'm like, are you okay? Remember that time, Ilhan, in the colloquium? You're like, Rashida, I survived war. I can survive them. I will never forget that because at that moment I was like, I'm not that worried about her anymore. Like, I just felt like, okay, I'm going to have her stand next to me when I got to get up and fight. But I got to tell you, being here 4 months, it's a love-hate relationship. I'm going to be honest with my sisters. You know, I grew up in the most beautiful, blackest city in the country, in the city of Detroit. And many of my teachers, my mothers on the block, all of them accepted me as a Palestinian woman, as a woman that understood it through the lens of my ancestors, through the lens of my living grandmother in the West Bank and the occupied territories of Palestine. They knew what I meant when I talked about the pain of oppression or the pain of feeling less than. And I remember Ilhan saying that to me once, like, you know, Rashida, I was born in a community where I was the majority. But you were born in a country where you felt like you were second class immediately when you were born, right? And this is a woman that speaks that way, that is raw, that is real. And I cannot stand that they continue to police her. They continue to police our words. They continue to police our positions. But I say hands off. Hands off of the women of color that serve in the United States Congress.
Not only do we look differently, but we serve and we fight differently. And it also means that we talk differently. It's also that we are allowed to be angry in this country. And I tell all this to my sisters, that as we fight and turn this is what fuels us. This is what gives us courage for you all to be here, siding with this woman that elevates so many young women. I can tell you tears of joy when they come up to us. I was telling them how this beautiful young girl, Palestinian American girl, who had a blazer on and she kept going like this, his mother's QQ. I was like, oh, she wants me to recognize her blazer. And she's going like this. Her name is Rian. And Rian was going like this, well, Rian, I love your blazer. And she says, I'm trying to look like you. I was like, girl, forget Congress, run for president. And do you know what she said? Uh-huh. And I thought to myself at that moment, you know, Sister Angela, I thought that at that moment, oh my God, this is bigger than my fight against corporate greed in Detroit. Like, this is so much bigger than me fighting against corporate polluters and freeing my residents, my people at home of the corporate assault on their lives. At that moment, I left and got into the car and I felt so much more liberated, because there is a new generation of women that are growing up seeing the courage of women like Ayanna Pressley and women like Ilhan Omar, who speak truth to power unapologetically. And I'm telling you right now, Ilhan, no more apologies, no more policing, no more backing down. As you all stand here, I want you to know movements like this start with all of you, not in the halls of Congress. So don't abandon us like you are doing right now. This is amazing. Thank you so much for giving us more power and giving us more courage to continue our fight for justice and equality for all of us. Thank you so much. God bless. Our next speaker really needs no Angela Davis.
Thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank the Movement for Black Lives, Barbara Ransby especially, and all of the organizers of this important action in defense of our sister, Ilhan Omar. Black women in defense of Ilhan Omar. And in defense of our right to take a stand for justice for Palestine. To take a stand against Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and their interrelationalities. To take a stand against racism and patriarchy. It is about time we stepped up to defend those who represent our political vision on the front lines of struggle. I feel particularly motivated to join this amazing group because the attack against Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, while it is clearly directed at her as an individual, is also designed to dissuade all of us from speaking out on issues that are considered controversial. The attacks on her emanating from from the occupants' Twitter feed. That's right, the occupants' Twitter feed. And the numerous threats of assassination from white nationalists and their supporters are a way of sending messages to other black women, to all who hold radical and progressive political views, that they too can be made into targets of vitriolic, violent racism. Be quiet, or you will suffer the fate of Ilhan Omar. That is the message. But we do not heed that message. We refuse to be quiet. Like Ilhan, we refuse to be quiet on the issue of Israel. Like Ilhan, Rashida Tlaib, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Ayanna Pressley, and thank the both of you for your powerful remarks. And all of their allies, you have to let us know who your allies are. We refuse to be quiet on the issue of human rights and justice for Palestine. We refuse to be quiet when it comes to the rights of immigrants, especially the undocumented, and the rights of Muslims. We will not participate in the legitimation of xenophobia, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, racism, and misogyny. We stand up because the logic of scapegoating, which emanates from the White House, is increasingly replacing political discourse designed to illuminate and enlighten, replacing that political discourse with mystification and obfuscation. Immigrants and Muslims are represented as the responsible parties when it comes to the impact of global capitalism. The increasing impoverishment of the working class is a function of the sustained attack on the labor movement and the increasing concentration of wealth in the hands of a few. According to the logic of scapegoating, it is immigrants and Muslims who are responsible. Immigrants are taking jobs away from so-called American workers. The real problem does not reside in the global super exploitation emanating from capitalism, but rather from what is referred to as global terrorism. And according to this logic of scapegoating, Muslims are the terrorists. Combined with this logic of scapegoating is a fungibility that is always at the heart of racism. If one person or a few people engage in or are accused of engaging in a crime, the entire community is rendered culpable. This is the logic of lynching another. This is the fungibility that is at the heart of racism that Ilhan Omar was, that some people do something and all of us lose access to civil liberties. We stand with Ilhan Omar because we recognize that the government of this country is at the forefront of a dangerous, far-right international pattern that includes Duterte in Brazil, the re-election in Venezuela. In fact, by defending Ilhan Omar, we celebrate the legacy of Marielle Franco, activist against racism and police violence and homophobia in Brazil, member of the Rio de Janeiro City Council. And of course, she was assassinated a little more than a year ago. We defend Ilhan because we contest the conflation of legitimate, impassioned critique of Israel with anti-Semitism and the fabrication of a notion that when the left calls for justice in Palestine, when the left supports BDS, then it has become the anti-Semitic left. This indicates a failure to take anti-Semitism seriously, and the manipulation of charges of anti-Semitism in a way that recalls the McCarthy era, and its manipulation of charges of being communist or communist sympathizers or friends or acquaintances of communist sympathizers. If you want to effectively challenge anti-Semitism, then you must recognize the intersections and interrelations of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. And of course, the recent attacks on synagogues and mosques are evidence of this convergence. I'd like to thank Jewish Voice for Peace, and if not now, for continually reminding us of this connection. And finally, as Black women in defense of Ilhan Omar, we invite all who believe in freedom and justice and peace to join us. Thank you.
Thank you. We all know why we are here. We are here because when we hear her speak, she brings a kind of courage, a kind of power, a kind of love that moves all of us, that tells us that it is our time to be courageous, to be powerful, to choose love, to choose courage, and to never let hate be the reason you choose not to speak words to power. Yes. We are here because she is ours. We are here because we will always defend her. We know that she will never stop fighting, and we hope that she knows that we will never stop defending her. We are here because we love you, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. We are here because we will never stop fighting for you, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. And we are here because you inspire us. Please join me in welcoming the powerful, the amazing, the inspiring Congresswoman Ilhan Omar.
Assalamu alaikum. Subax wanaagsan. I'm a little emotional. Everyone knows that I refuse to cry. I talk about this all the time. I always say that nobody really deserves my tears or any of my sister's tears. But you all have moved me to tears with your love, and I am just grateful to all of you. To one of my idols, Angela Davis, I can't tell you how enormously inspiring you've been to me throughout my life. The work that you have done in making us realize that we have to be internally liberated to fight for external liberation has been life-saving for people like me who had to navigate what it feels like to grow up Black in this country. So thank you. To my sisters who give me strength in the movement for Black lives, I am forever grateful to all of you. To Nina, who always brings down the house. I heard your voice all the way from the Capitol. And I was like, that's probably Nina or Ayana, one of them. And to my sisters, our squad, people are like, you call yourselves a squad. I'm like, I don't know if we do that, you call us that. But we are certainly sisters in the struggle to fight for authentic progress for all of our communities. And Rashida was right. I bought all of them bracelets when I was in Austin a couple of weeks ago. And it all had messages to what they mean to me. I think of Ayanna as someone who never takes no for an answer. Even as she broke her leg, constantly getting up, making sure that she was fighting for all of us, using the strength of her voice. So what I got her, her bracelet says unstoppable. And everybody knows Rashida is the eldest of 14 kids. And she is Mama Bear. And so that's what her bracelet says. And to my sister Alexandria, who isn't here, her bracelet says Boss Babe, because she's fierce. And mine says Badass. And here's why. Here's the thing that really offends a lot of people and the reason that we are here. I was born as a very liberated human being to a country that was colonized, that recognized can colonize the land, but they can't colonize your mind. To people who recognized that all of us deserve dignity and that no human being was ever going to tell you that you were less than them. 13 people organized for our independence in Somalia. So I was born in that breath of recognizing that they might be more powerful than you are. That they might have more technology than you have. But you control your mind, and that is what sets you free. The thing that upsets the occupant of the White House, his goons in the Republican Party, many of our colleagues in the Democratic Party, is that they can't stand that a refugee, a black woman, an immigrant, a Muslim shows up in Congress thinking she's equal to them. But I say to them, how else did you expect me to show up? So here's the reality. I tell people every single day, I have a certificate that everyone else has hanged in their offices in Congress. The same exact certificate of election. But I got more people who voted for me and sent me here than 428 of them. So when they say, who does she think she is? When they say, who does she think she is? I am the one that the people sent to be a voice for them. So we have to always recognize that one marginalized voice represents many marginalized voices. But I don't only represent one marginalized voice. Because in this country, I also happen to be a woman. That's a I happen to be a Muslim. And I also happen to be a refugee and an immigrant from what they call one of the shithole countries. The reality is that shithole country raised a very proud, dignified person. Our circumstances might not always be perfect, but that doesn't lessen our humanity. And I am not in the business of defending mine. So when this occupant of the White House chooses to attack me, we know that that attack isn't for Ilhan. That attack is the continuation of the attacks that he's leveled against women, against people of color, against immigrants, against refugees, and certainly against Muslims. And we are collectively saying, your vile attacks, your demented views are not welcome here. This is not going to be the country of the xenophobics. This is not going to be the country of white people. This is not going to be the country of the few. This is the country of the many. This is a country that was founded, on the history of Native American genocide, on the backs of black slaves, but also by immigrants. And so as much as we need to remedy the history that we continue to neglect, we also must recognize that every liberty that we enjoy here, every single progress we get to celebrate, came about because immigrants participated in it. So I know my place in this society. All of you know your place in this society. And it's one that is equal to every single person that walks in it. But my sisters and I also know our place in Congress. We know that we each represent 780,000 constituents, just like everyone else does. We know that the fight for liberation doesn't only stay in the walls of this country, but it's one that's connected to every single community around the world. Because when Palestinians are struggling with occupation and their dehumanization isn't being talked about, that is on us to uplift them. When we hear the voices and the struggles of Venezuelans, we say, leave their sovereignty alone, let them fight for their own liberation. Because we know that our liberations are collective. That my freedom isn't worthy of much if my sisters and brothers aren't free. And my joy isn't much if everyone else isn't living a joyous life. A prosperity for me should never come in the expense of prosperity for everyone. That there is no way that I lose sleep over the safety of my children if I can't lose sleep over the safety of everyone else's children. And at this moment, the occupant of the White House, as my sister Ayana likes to call him, and his allies are doing everything that they can to distance themselves and misinform the public from the monsters that they created that is terrorizing the Jewish community and the Muslim community. Because when we are talking about anti-Semitism, we must also talk about Islamophobia. It's two sides of the same coin of bigotry. When they shove that to us and say we're the party of hate, they forget that we're the party of love. We're the party of compassion. We're the party of inclusiveness. What we are fighting for is not for the few, but for the many.
Yes.
Every single one, just this week, when we've had the attack in California on a synagogue, it's the same person who's accused of attempting to bomb a mosque. So I can't ever speak of Islamophobia and fight for Muslims if I am not willing to fight against anti-Semitism. We collectively must make sure that we are dismantling all systems of oppression.
Yes.
And as we did in the last two election cycles, we've all risen up and said, all are welcome. I remember showing up at Andre Carson's office. He had refugees are welcome, and I opened the door and said, here I am. This has been our message. We say, right, we're fighting against Islamophobia. All refugees are welcome. It's the land of immigrants. Black Lives Matter. But we show clear hypocrisy when we're not doing the work here in Congress and standing up to defend all of the marginalized identities that are being attacked through me. So this isn't a pity party for Ilhan. This is about a show of strength. Right? This is a show of strength. This is for us to say, that when you come after one of us, you come after all of us. And when one of us, not because I'm a big person, as you all can see, I'm very tiny. It's not because I have some weird internalized strength. It's not only because I'm a survivor of war, and if I survived militia, I certainly can survive these people. But it is because every single place I go, I know that I am walking in with all of you hand in hand. So I know that every time I interact with someone, every time I speak, every time I take a vote, that all of you are walking in with me. That is why people react very differently towards me than they do with others. So, as Rashida said, don't desert us. We're going to need you, right? I told Miski, my sister, Miski Noor, who's from Minneapolis. Wave, Miski. When I first got elected, they had a gathering for me in a collective home that they shared, the folks in the movement for Black Lives. And a young woman started crying. And she said, Ilhan, I'm glad we did the work in getting you elected, but now I'm really sad. And I said, well, why are you sad? And she said, well, I'm afraid that once you get there, you're going to become just like everyone else. And I said, well, everyone else becomes that way because they forget who they represent. I am never going to be at risk of becoming everyone else who works in feeding corporate greed, because I know that all of you are going to sit me down at every moment that you get and remind me what my purpose is, who I am fighting for, and who has my back. So I humbly thank you all for showing up. I got you, and we're gonna be all right. We love you. We love you. We love you.
go back. There's a vote. Please let them leave. There's a car waiting for them. They know to feel your love.
I have to go. I'm sorry, my meeting.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I just don't want you to
Just say
stress
hello.
out about trying to get
We have two last speakers. Please don't leave. We have two brief speakers. Alicia Garza, one of the founders of the Movement for Black Lives, wants to say one word of solidarity.
Thank you, sis.
You're wonderful. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. Say a word or two. Oh, Alicia, please. Just you gotta go. I know.
All right,
I'm gonna wait in the thing.
all right, I'm only going to take a minute because I feel like Ilhan said everything is said. I'm only going to take a minute because I feel like my sister Angela said everything that needs to be said. But I want to ask y'all a question. Because when I look at these sisters on the stage and I see them in the halls of Congress, I think to myself, this is exactly what my U.S. Congress should look like. This is exactly what my U.S. Congress should be speaking about. This is exactly the type of stands that my representatives should be having. But there's a question that I have for us. What are we willing to do to make sure that we can proliferate women like Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, proliferate like Congresswomen Rashida Tlaib? How do we make sure that there are more of them? One of the things that we have to do is not just vote. Voting is important, but voting is only one step. Yes. One of the things that we have to make sure that we do is stay engaged. Yes. We cannot just watch while Congresswoman Ilhan Omar is attacked. Congresswoman Omar knows how to defend herself. The question is, are we going to stand up for her right to be in that building? Yes. Are we going to stand up and make sure that there are many more of her in that building? Yes. Well, what that means, y'all, is that when we leave here, that this momentum does not stop. What it means is that these rallies need to happen in state legislatures across the country to embolden your representative to stand with Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. What it means, y'all, is that we cannot continue to use black women and Palestinian women and Muslim women as window dressing to make us feel better about the things that we're doing. We actually have to stand with them and stand for ourselves, quite frankly. So I want to thank the Movement for Black Lives for organizing this event. I want to thank Black Lives Matter DC for organizing this event, for giving us the courage to stand up and to defend our sister, but also to defend our movement. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a beautiful connection between people struggling inside Congress on our behalf and people building movement like Alicia Garza. And our last speaker, don't leave yet, is Keeanga Yamada Taylor. Keeanga is a scholar, an activist, a longtime freedom fighter, and she's going to close us out. Don't go. She'll be brief but important.
Hello. I don't want to belabor the point, but we are here to stand in solidarity with Black, Muslim, immigrant, and refugee has made her a target for the right wing. But we know that the coordinated attacks against her, orchestrated by the right, and the reluctance of some liberals and the Democratic Party to offer a full-throated defense of her is not just because of who she is, but what she represents. She could have enjoyed a life of relative obscurity in Congress. There are more black members in Congress than there have been in this nation's history. But no one, short of Maxine Waters, has received the scrutiny, attack, and vilification that Ilhan Omar has. And that is clear that it's not just who she is, but what it is that she represents. And her willingness to confront the massive inequality in the United States has made her a target. Her willingness to call for the redistribution of resources in
country to end the embarrassment of inequality in the distribution of health care, education, and the quality of life has made her a target. The right wing, in the absence of being able to challenge her politics and ideas, have resorted to smears and vilification. They only want to distract with their attempts to normalize Trump's racism and white supremacy as it unleashes and activates the thugs on the margins of white supremacy. They want to silence and intimidate anyone who disagrees with them. And we reject that by refusing to be silent. Not only do we stand with Ilhan Omar as a basic gesture of solidarity, but we stand with Representative Omar's political agenda based in justice and democracy. We stand with her culture in this country that worships the wealthy and powerful while ignoring the struggles of ordinary people. We stand with her agenda. We stand with Representative Omar in her efforts to call out the hypocrisy of an American foreign policy that claims to bomb and fund tyranny in the name of democracy. We know that in a country that has forced us to say Black Lives Matter, it cannot be trusted to claim the mantle of freedom and justice when abroad. Ilhan Omar has called out this hypocrisy, and this is why they hate her, and her fearlessness, and her unwillingness to play the game by their rules. So we stand with us. Thank you.
How y'all feeling? How y'all feeling? So we're about to close out, but before we do, I'd like to invite up Patience from the group Boots Camp that's going to give us a bit of culture, a bit of music before we end.
I'm not a speaker, I'm just here to sing y'all out. But trust Black women matter, and I stand with Ilhan, so. It's just me up here, so if y'all feel like clapping, if y'all want to dance, come through, all right? Hold on to the world as it spins around. Just don't let the spin get you down. Things are moving fast. Just hold on and you will last. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Yeah. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Hold on to your self-respect, your Black women's pride. Get yourself in gear, keep your stride. There will be a brighter day. Brighter days are near. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Yeah. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Can y'all sing that with me? Someday we'll all be free. Y'all can do better than that. I can't hear y'all. Come on, yeah. Take it from me. Someday we'll all be free.
Oh my gosh. Wasn't that beautiful? Wasn't that beautiful? Could we honor and celebrate this powerful voice. All right, that brings us to a close. We love you. Are we in this together? Are we in this together? All right, love you, family. Please disperse.